Taking a parent for a trip out from a dementia unit is quite a big exercise, especially if they're in a wheelchair. There really is a lot to consider. Firstly, the wheelchair itself. You need to make sure that it's well oiled, tyres are pumped up, that the foot rests are aligned, etc. Probably to get the newest wheelchair is the best thing. At any dementia unit, there's generally 2 or 3 wheelchairs to choose from. So find the best wheelchair and do practice runs before you take the person out to check that the wheelchair's okay and that everything's in order. Probably in the dementia unit itself, to go around the corridor in a few times in the wheelchair to make sure that everything's running smoothly, and then a walk in the grounds in the wheelchair. That's always a good way to go as an initial starting point for wheelchair management, so to speak. So when you take the person out in the wheelchair, the first thing really though is to do the sitting and standing exercise in the unit where everything's safe. Sitting and standing from the wheelchair, as I went through that in the previous video. Now, if your mother is weak and has weak legs and isn't standing very well, there's a few things to go through. Okay, so firstly, sitting to standing from the wheelchair, make sure that the brakes are on firmly and that they're good brakes, and just push the wheelchair back and forward a little bit to make sure that the brakes hold firm. Make sure that the footrests are both up. Okay, and then get your mother standing in front of the wheelchair. Then for sitting standing practice, ask her to sit down, to lean forward, to put her hands back onto the rests of the wheelchair, keep leaning forward and sit down. Now that's usually the easy part. Okay, so you've accomplished that. Now you're doing the sitting to standing part, which is the harder part. That takes the strength of the quadriceps, upper leg muscles. Okay, so you say to your mother, now lean forward, mum, push into the hands, the armrests of the wheelchair, lean forward, push into your feet, straighten your knees, push up, push into your feet, straighten your knees, work your legs up and stand up. Now, she may throughout that say, oh, I can't do it, but keep encouraging her and guide her with that movement to lean forward, push into the armrests, push into the feet, straighten the knees and stand up. It's good to do that, to practice that a few times in the unit where everything's safe and sound, because otherwise what happens is if your mother gets out of practice with that manoeuvre, often what they do is they just try and stand straight up, like with their back extended, and there's no gravity assist in that, and certainly the quadriceps muscles can't work in that manoeuvre and they won't be able to achieve it. So lots of practice, leaning forward, pushing into the hands and then standing up and using the fronts of the legs, straighten the knees, use the legs, push into the floor. All of that training and exercising and practice, reminding your mother and doing a few practice runs, sit stands before you go out. Okay, so assuming that you're all sorted for your trip out, let's say in the wheelchair you've done your rounds of the circuit in the dementia unit, the wheelchair's running smoothly, you can manoeuvre it well, the brakes are fine, the footrests are fine, your mother's comfortable and well seated, then you know that you're ready for the next step, which is the wheelchair manoeuvrability and exercising with the wheelchair outside in the gardens of the retirement village. That's the best thing, rather than just going straight out for a trip, really. I mean, it's just, a lot of things need to be coordinated to be able to manoeuvre a wheelchair sufficiently. So the second step, really, it's better to take the person out for a walk in the gardens. Now, there will be curbs, there will be slopes, you will have to angle the wheelchair in different ways, and the person sitting in the chair will have to keep sitting in the chair, hold on to the sides of the armrests and not let themselves flop forward, etc. So all of this you're practicing in the walks. So you can do that a couple of times, get that under control. You've been up and down the curbs, up and down slopes, in and out of buildings with the wheelchair. no trouble. Up and down the lift, if the dementia unit is the second floor, then you've managed, you're used to going up and down the lift with the wheelchair, in and out of doors, tight doors, etc. Okay, so you've got that under control and you've had no problems with that. Then the third step is taking the person out on an actual trip in the car. Now that takes a bit more wheelchair manoeuvrability. Firstly, the car has to be big enough to take the wheelchair, so a station wagon or whatever. You have to make sure, before you take your mother out or father out, take the wheelchair downstairs and see if you can get it into the car easily. If so, good. If not, you might have to get another car or work out another arrangement. But it's best to work all that out before you bring your mother down and try and fiddle around getting it organised and not being able to achieve the mission. So the car needs to be big enough to take the wheelchair. Also, you need to be strong enough to be able to get the chair into the car. They're not like things wheelchairs, and they're bulky. So you need to have a strong back and good biceps to be able to manage a wheelchair. So all of that's important. But assuming that's all in order and you can manage to get the wheelchair into the car, then you can take your mother out on a trip from that point. And so assuming that she's in the wheelchair, you've sorted everything out, make sure that when you do leave the unit, you need to sign out with your name, the resident's name and the date, the time they're leaving, and the time they're expected to come back. That's needed, that process is needed for roll calls if there's a fire, if they know that you're out on a trip, then they're not going to go through the building searching for you. Also for meals, the staff need to know whether the resident will be back for a meal or not, so indicate the time of the return and whether you would like a meal saved for your mother or father or not for when they get back. All of these considerations are important. Another thing to consider, of course, is the medications. If your mother's going out for, say, 3-4 hours, she may well need medications. So talk to the nurse and she will give you the medication required to give your mother. So all that's sorted, then the sitting to standing's fine. You're able to get your mother downstairs into the car. She's manoeuvring well. She can do the sit-stand manoeuvrability well. The wheelchair manoeuvrability is in order. And really then you're set. You're fine. You can pretty much do anything. As long as your mother can stand from sitting and as long as the wheelchair manoeuvrability is in order, then you can take your mother wherever you like. Maybe not crowded restaurants are pretty difficult, but even then if there's a dining area that's not too crowded, it's fine to take your mother there. But the most important things are getting these two things under control. Keeping the legs strong for the sit-stand transfer and being able to manage the wheelchair and getting a wheelchair that runs smoothly and well so that if you take your mother, for example, for a walk around the park, you can do that if you've got a functional wheelchair. But if it's rusty and the tyres are flat and everything's out of order, it's a bit difficult. Okay, so I've written these two books, The Resident's Voice and The Resident's Rise, both from a dementia unit. Just to let you know, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Pieta Valentine. I'm a former physiotherapist, and I've written these two books specially to enable dementia residents coming into dementia facilities to be able to, manage more effectively and settle and have techniques and aspects to be able to improve their quality of life, both through their own self-effort and for the help from relatives. But all of these techniques need to be considered and learnt and, aligned, and it's a lot of education is needed to be able to help someone coming into a dementia facility settle and manage and hopefully have a better quality of life because of all this work that's being put in to be able to help them and consider every aspect of what they need to be able to settle emotionally and physically and psychologically. So thank you very much for all your looks and likes and subscriptions, and please subscribe. Thank you, so that this little platform can get up and running.